Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers have announced that they have fired head coach Peter Laviolette and associate head coach Phil Housley, and this is certainly not a surprise. It was thought that maybe they would wait through the weekend and maybe make that announcement early this coming week, but they decided to do it now. And uh, you know, with this season being as big of a disappointment as it was, this is the first domino to fall. And really, Chris Drury is someone that also should be on the hot seat. I don't expect him to be let go. I do expect that he will be allowed to make his third head coaching hire. You don't see that too often where, obviously he brings on Gerard Gallant. He's there for 2 seasons, then Peter Laviolette for 2 seasons. And really, both instances were kind of similar, where year one was very successful. Kind of in both cases, a surprising Eastern Conference final run. Uh, the first one with Gallant probably being more of a surprise, given the Rangers hadn't made the playoffs in, what had it been? I think maybe to that point, 4 straight seasons, and then, to kind of unexpectedly make it. But then Laviolette's first season was extremely unexpected in the fact the Rangers won the President's Trophy, coming off of a very disappointing first round exit against the New Jersey Devils, which led to Gerard Gallant's dismissal. So, and at the end of the day, really, to me, it still comes back to the core of the team and why these things are happening. And also, it's specific to Laviolette and Gallant, but also a lot of NHL head coaches where year one is a lot of times um, really a good kickstart for a hockey club, which is why next season, assuming the Rangers are kind of in a win now mode, which I think that they are, you may expect the Rangers to be better next year just based on the switch alone. But a lot of changes still need to be made regardless of this. And look, Laviolette was part of the problem, even though he really was pushing all the right buttons in year one. I mean, really, along the way, obviously, by the time you lose, I remember this even with Gallant in 2022, you're going to be critical of the head coach by the end. And it wasn't as if Laviolette was perfect last year, but really, you felt like he had a good grip on the team. There was buy-in from the whole group. But this year was a total mess, really starting from the offseason. With the way the whole Jacob Trouba thing was handled, he really should have been off. The jury should have found every way he could have to just take care of that, not let it linger into the season, because I really do think that did have an effect in the long run. And but Phil Housley is all, we're not gonna, spend as much time on him, but he was really, it was obvious that he was gonna be gone. He was in charge of the defense, which was a nightmare. Just the amount of grade A chances this team allowed was completely unacceptable. So that was really a given that he be gone. As far as the rest of the staff, Michael Pekka and Dan Muse, the two assistant coaches, they are still with the team, and I guess they might be in the head coach mix. I wouldn't expect either of them to win the job, but it is interesting, and it almost makes you think, although I'm not surprised, in a perfect world, obviously you don't know you're not gonna make the playoffs, but when the Rangers were struggling, if they did let go of Laviolette then, and let's say they did promote from within with Pekka or Muse, at least you could have seen what you had there. Now you don't even have that um, experience, so I wouldn't think that they're in great shape, but also, I don't know, both of them are highly thought of, um, and for better or worse, they were, with Laviolette previously, so they are kind of attached to him. But we'll see. As far as the possibilities for who the next head coach might be, I would be shocked if the Rangers go for a first year head coach. Now, with David Quinn, that didn't exactly work out. He was there for 3 seasons. So really, I mean, again, it's been pretty short-term runs for these head coaches, where Quinn was head coach longer than Laviolette and Gallant, but the Rangers were in a different stage at that time, where they were in more of a rebuild when Quinn was brought on after Alain Vigneault. There's a lot of talk about David Carl, the University of Denver head coach. He's been very successful at that level, and he'll have a lot of suitors as well. So it's no guarantee that he'd even want to be, if the Rangers even gave him the offer, that he would take it necessarily. There's still a lot to go. This is very early on in the process. I mean, as I'm recording this, the NHL playoffs haven't even begun, which does give the Rangers a leg up, just getting things going. And breakup day hasn't even happened yet. That'll be on Monday. So usually there's some interesting things that come out of that, little news and exit interviews and things of that sort. But as far as veteran head coaches are concerned, there's always Mike Sullivan is always a topic of conversation. I think that if the Rangers had their choice of it, he would definitely be very high on that list. I don't know that he'll necessarily be, parting ways with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It does seem like, even though really it does seem like change is needed there. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back with the Penguins. And also, I'm not even totally sure that I think Sullivan makes the most sense. Now, he was an assistant coach with the New York Rangers under John Tortorella. And as far as Tortorella is concerned, well, that I think is a long shot. There is a lot of thought that Jim Dolan is a big fan of Tortorella. So, like, I don't think we can completely say that that's an impossibility that he could return. Although, again, I would say it's probably more unlikely. A couple other first year head coach possibilities that could be interesting. Jeff Halpern is an assistant coach with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I feel like there could be a bright future there. And, when is he going to get his first crack at it? Jay Leach is an assistant coach with the Boston Bruins. There's been talk about him in the past. What's a shame in it all is the fact that the Rangers had someone in Chris Knobloch who's had success with Edmonton. And now, look, it helps obviously when you have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl on your team. That's a big, big help to Knobloch. But he was someone that was, in the system, if you will. The head coach there for Wolfpack. We'd even seen him, when on a couple of occasions, I think COVID related, as far as David Quinn and I think Gerard Gallant, where Knobloch stepped up and was head coach. And, that might have been one that got away, possibly, but nothing they can do about that now. But it's going to be a big hire, and one that I hope is a head coach that will be here more than just 2 seasons. And with Laviolette, it's not really that much of a surprise. Like, this is just what he's done, in his coaching career. Now, this is the shortest amount of time, although I guess with the Islanders, he was only the head coach with the Islanders for 2 years, but I would consider that very successful. That was a very bad Islander team that he was able to bring to the playoffs both times. And then he becomes the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes and wins the Stanley Cup there. In what was his first full season. It was his second season, but his first full season as Hurricanes head coach. With the Flyers in year one, he reached the Stanley Cup final. With the Nashville Predators in year three, he reached the Stanley Cup final. And with Washington Capitals, before the Rangers, really was very good year one in that 56 game schedule in 2021, and then year two as well. In some ways, it felt like Laviolette's last year with the Caps was kind of similar to his last year with the Rangers. I think the message just wasn't getting through to the players anymore. And it was a team that really wasn't showing much fight. And again, it's not all on Laviolette, but at the same time, there's no way that this could have continued, right? Whoever you want to blame this on, this was a team that lacked a whole lot of character, no comeback ability, and it just seemed like they were going through the motions. And so the head coach is the one that does take the fall for that. We see that. And it's just, to me, the problem is Chris Drury, for him to now have his third head coach. And look, and he was in the organization as well. When they hired David Quinn, I think at that point, obviously there was Jeff Gorton was the general manager. But Drury has been with the Rangers now for a bit. And in this role now, ever since 2021. And to me, all indications are that he'll be back. Now, crazy things have happened. And maybe somehow these exit interviews could change hearts and minds. Kind of think about when John Tortorella, now that was different because Tortorella was head coach, but when he was fired, that was much later in the game. That was after conversations, I think, with players. So maybe somehow you could have a surprise dismissal of Drury, but I'm going under the assumption that he'll be back. And so as far as when a new head coach is announced and hired, might not be for a while. Again, with it being, the playoffs just having started, and who knows what shakes loose of that, right? You could have certainly some coaches be let go after their teams are eliminated. So they're going to want to, definitely get a big pool of coaches in here, and they'll try to make the best decision possible. But this is not a surprise at all. Maybe it was a little bit early as far as, when it was done, but we're only talking about days, really. The anticipated firing of Laviolette, you knew it was coming after the season. So he is gone. Phil Housley as well. Not a surprise there that the associate head coach is gone too. And we'll see what happens from here. This is the first domino to fall in what is expected to be a very busy offseason for the New York Rangers.